We know as Muslims that it doesn't matter how much we speak about all of this. As a community, we are collectively responsible for everything that we do. We have been speaking about extremism and ifrat and tafrit, and they are two sides of the radila. And we've said that fadila is one. There are two sides of fadila. You can't have too much of goodness. You are either good or you are not good. Excessive goodness is always good. Excessive taqwa is always good. You can't say, well, his taqwa is too high, so he needs to cut down a bit. We can say, for example, that he needs to divide his life wisely so that they don't excessively pray and fast and neglect their family members, for example, or the rest of society. We've mentioned that, haven't we? But yet, when we look at something like ilm, there is no extremism in ilm. The more you seek knowledge, the more you are thirsty to seek more. But along with ilm, there needs to be certain other characteristics. Number one, you need to have amal. Along with ilm, you need amal. You need to practice what you learn, what you know. You don't need to look more and more and more, and you have those simple basic things that you have yet to practice. People say, well, I want to do new a'mal, and I want to practice more, and I want to get into the spiritual mode. Yes, that's very good. How are you with the simple things of wajibat and staying away from haram? Have you been able to grasp onto them and perfect them in the best way? If we only have the risala amaliya of our marja' taqleed and practice the laws of halal and haram, that would be more than enough for us to exceed in spiritual stations. Number two, along with amal, number two, tawadu'. With ilm, you always need to be humble. Unfortunately, some people who become knowledgeable, along with that, they become very haughty. They have takabbur. They have ghurur. This is what is called al-hijab al-akbar. The greatest veil is the veil of ilm that brings about arrogance. And we know that there are some people who, just because they are intellectual, they're smart, they have a high IQ, all of a sudden they're all up there and they show their arrogance by the way they talk, by the way they express themselves, and this is going to block them for any type of spiritual progress. If you have a tree that bears fruits, the branches fall down so you can pick them. If you have a tree that is useless, doesn't even have a shade for you to sit under, the branches are up because it's a useless tree. We need to be like trees that bear fruits, where we are accessible, where we are humble, where we show humility, where we are grateful, and we always remember that on top of every knowledgeable person, there is a more, as the Quran says, there is a more knowledgeable person. Just because you have a bachelor's or a master's, that doesn't mean that you start treating other people in a bad way. It doesn't mean that you mock people. Why is it that all of a sudden, because your mother or your grandmother does not have that high tertiary education, you don't look up to her as far as the advice that she gives? Why is it that when we listen to our parents and what it is that they have to say, we treat them like they are delirious, like they're a mukhraf person, the mother and the father? She's hit the age of 50, she doesn't know what she's talking about anymore. She's giving you advice, yeah, but do this, do that. We have a hadith that says, alaykum bideen al-ajaiz. Refer back to the religion or the practices of the elder, because they inherited certain things through instinct, through nature, through tajruba and experience. There are illiterate people that I have met that are more knowledgeable than any great professor, because that inherited knowledge that they have is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a story about a famous person who was in Qom. He relocated himself to Qom and he is buried in Qom. He was a very pious, religious mu'min. One day he woke up, memorized the whole Quran. They said to him, Karbala'i, his name is, and you could look him up on the internet. They said, prove that you are able to recite the Quran. They took him to the great Marja Sayyid al-Burujurdi. I think I mentioned his name a few nights ago. And Sayyid al-Burujurdi issued a statement proving the i'jaz, the karama of this illiterate person who could not read, no newspaper or anything. And they said, what is the difference if we show you a paper and if we show you verses from the Quran? He said, with the paper I just see blurry things. With verses from the Quran I see nur. This happened only 50, 60 years ago. You go against your nafs, you suppress your nafs, you rid yourself of those radha'il that we have spoken about, and you will be blessed with something by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was a man and he was a bazzaz. Bazzaz means material merchant, someone who used to buy and sell qimash, material. One day he knocked on the door of a house and a lady opened the door. She said, yes, I'm very interested in buying some of your material, but please come inside. He came inside, she locked the door. After locking the door, she said, you are not going to leave until we are together. And she was a lady of extreme beauty. This person who was a normal person, he was a merchant, he wasn't no alim or no great marja or anything like that. He said, what am I going to do? Ya Allah, what am I going to do? He remembered hellfire. And he said, okay, allow me to go to the bathroom so I can, brush myself up a bit, mashat my lihya so I look more presentable and things like that. He went to the bathroom, contemplating on what's going to happen. She's locked the door. She's not going to allow him to leave. She's a beautiful lady. His nafs is fighting with him. What is going to happen? What am I going to do? He looked at the toilet. Ajallakum Allah. He picked up the najasa from the toilet and wiped it on him. And he walked out and he said to her, here I am. She felt disgusted. She opened the door. He ran away. He was blessed with the ilm of interpreting dreams. Someone who had absolutely no knowledge of this, all of a sudden woke up one day being blessed with interpreting dreams. Ibn Sirin, until now, after all of these years, it's a reference book for dreams. Anyone who wants to know about the tafsir of ahlam and things like that, refer back to his book. There's another young brother in our own community here in Sydney by the name of Abbas. One day, he was in a camp. He told me the story himself. He was 13, 14 years old. And he was at a school camp. In the night time, Salah time came, and he was ashamed of having to have to pray in front of everyone else. He was upset. He cried himself to sleep. He woke up in the morning. Dr. Ali, have you heard this? He woke up in the morning and he knew Dua al-Tawassul off by heart. Now he's studying medicine or something like that. He used to always recite Dua al-Tawassul in Imam Hussein Islamic Center. Until now, people know of him. This isn't no story that existed hundreds of years ago. You can do it if you want to. You can stick with your wajib. Stay away from haram. It's as simple as that. No one is forcing you to backbite and lie and abuse others. No one is forcing you to disrespect your parents. It doesn't matter how many 313 tattoos you get. If you are not admi, you're not going to be no 313 or 551 or anything else. This is the reality of it. You want to join Al-Hashd al-Sha'bi and you can't even wake up for Salatul Fajr, it's not going to happen. You want to be a part of Hizbullah and you abuse your mother and disrespect your mother and your father, it's not going to happen. You want to be all the way up there and you're doing this, it's not going to happen. How many times do we have to remind our brothers and sisters about public behavior, about how to conduct yourselves with others, about how to be well presented, about you always remembering that you represent your religion, about simple things like a 12, 13-year-old girl should not have a nose ring and piercing and tight clothes and no socks and makeup. Doesn't matter how many times we say it. Next minute, she's got nail polish and she's got this and she's got that. Doesn't matter how many times we say it. What kind of mother and father allows their 13, 14-year-old girl to walk out like she's in a Paris fashion parade and she's only going to Westfield Shopping Centre or Nita City? We see it all the time, don't we? We see it all the time. Yeah, but where are you going? Oh, I'm just going around the corner. Why are you dressed like that then? Where is your taqwa? Where is your fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? 99% of our sisters know that makeup is haram, but yet they do it anyway. Some of them do it anyway. Doesn't matter. And they get the most likes. A girl who posts a post about correct hijab, about observing the etiquettes of how to present yourself in public, he or she will get 0 likes. They'll probably get some abusive inbox messages saying, how dare you attack other people and things like that. Whereas someone who posts up their fish lip, duck lip pose, how many likes do they get? This is serious, this is a problem. You are partner in crime, in sharing the ithm and the punishment of promoting that kind of munkar, brothers and sisters. I say brothers because you got brothers who make like comments as well. How gorgeous are you? Those eyelashes go along with that pair of shoes that you're wearing. These are real problems, brothers and sisters. Yes, we're laughing about it, but tomorrow morning or tonight you wake up and you see these posts. I've seen pictures, or I've been shown pictures of some people dressed up for a Muharram program like as if, they're competing with Angelina Jolie. This is problematic. Where are the parents? Where are the elder brothers and sisters? Where are the husbands? Where are they? Allahu A'lam. We all have a collective duty towards this. This is our responsibility. This is our duty to make sure that we preserve the integrity of ourselves, we preserve the integrity of others, because you are ruining yourself. This is your nafs, this is your ego, because your nafs feeds on pride, your nafs feeds on comments that are positive. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi has said that if someone praises you, tell them to stop. If someone praises you, throw dirt at their face. Man madahaka faqad dhammak. Someone who praises you is in reality criticizing you. Don't let people praise you, make your head bigger and bigger. Why is it that all of a sudden we do not have those values? When I tell my brothers, it is haram for you to go to beaches and run around without any top and go to public swimming pools at times where you know there's going to be haram. You have certainty that there's going to be haram. They say, Sheikh, I don't really look. That's a lie. It's not possible for you not to look. I would give examples, but it's Muharram and we're being recorded. Why is it that all of a sudden, once upon a time, there was one type of hijab, and that's hijab. Now you've got convertible hijab. You've got Mickey Mouse hijab, yani her ears and a little bit of her neck is showing. You've got the camel hump hijab. The camel hump hijab. The bigger her camel hump, the more religious she is. And she rolls it and rolls it and rolls it. This is munkar. And no one's saying anything about it. No one's doing anything about it. This isn't good. Really, this ruins that very spirituality that you and I need to have. I'm talking about myself. I'm talking about my family members. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about people here in Sydney, people in Karbala. Everywhere this is a problem, brothers and sisters. We are all responsible for this. Christian person, and I was speaking to him about how it's important, how Islam emphasizes very much on public appearance. And the topic of hijab came up, and how we try to make sure that when it comes to hijab of both male and female, it is only a sign of iman and taqwa. Are sisters allowed to pray without hijab in a room locked and nobody else in it? The answer is no. So the spirituality of hijab is not for the sake of others, but for the sake of yourself. And I said to him, if we were in a desert and your wife walked past and you didn't know it was your wife, and my wife walked past and I didn't know it was my wife, which of these two women would you think straight away, without any second thought, that she would be someone similar to Mary alayhi salam? Someone dressed like your wife, or someone dressed like our wives? And he said, well, of course, someone dressed in that certain way that you Muslims dress. And I said, thank you. Nuns are dressed that way because they believe that this is the one and only way for you to attain, for you to reach the highest level of spirituality. And we say, well, from the age of 9 and 10, all Muslim girls have attained the highest level of spirituality by observing hijab. The thing is that they need to carry that on. We know that there is problems like peer pressure, people around you, fashion, elegance, dressed well. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a mu'mina girl dressed elegantly. No one wants any girl or boy, any male or female, to be mkharbat, to not be presentable. That's why I've used the word presentable in many ways. But you can observe correct hijab and also be elegant and presentable at the same time. You can be good Justin Bieber look-alike, but you don't need to go all the way like him, wearing shorts and wearing singlets and wearing this and wearing that. You need to know that there are certain standards for a mu'min and a mu'minah. I'm trying to make sure that I am equally fair in addressing the topic of hijab to both brothers and sisters. But ultimately, we know that there is a fundamental difference between hijab of brothers and sisters. You look at my arm and no one's going to say, oh wow, look at that. But women is totally different. Everything in a woman is hijab. Everything in a woman needs to be preserved with dignity and modesty and chastity and purity. And this is why one of the main teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam is for you to have a basira, insight. When you learn, when you gain that knowledge, you also understand what the purpose of all this knowledge is for, how you are able to implement it in your life, or else it won't carry any value whatsoever. Things will come and go, and days will come and go, and you will be exactly the same. And this is why in Karbala there were two sides. There was the side of haqq and there was the side of batil. There wasn't no middle sides. Let's read a hadith from Imam Hussein alayhi salam and carry on with speaking about the fada'il and the radha'il, or fadila and radhila. Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, has said, as-sidqu izz. How many times have I spoken about being truthful? Truthfulness is honor. Wal-kidhbu ajz. And lying is incompetence. Only an incompetent person lies. Only a person who lacks things lies. Was-sirru amana. A secret is amana, is a trust that someone gives to you. Wal-ma'una sadaqah. Assisting others is a form of charity. Wal-amalu tajrubah. Practicing, working is experience. That's why it's good to work. Whatever type of work, it's good. It gives you experience. Wal-khulqul hasan ibadah. Good akhlaq is an act of worship. Was-samtu zayn. Silence is an adornment, is a decoration. Silence is gold. If you have nothing good to say, what do they say? Don't say anything at all. Was-shuhha faqr. Stinginess. Shuh means greed, stinginess. Bukhl. Was-shuhha faqr. It's poverty. What kind of poverty? You can be the richest person and you can have faqr, inner faqr. You can be stingy in your insides. You can be faqir on your insides because you still want more and more and you still have that greed. Was-sakha'u ghina. Generosity is being rich. You can have a small amount of money, but you are generous, and that makes you the richest of people. War-rifqu lub. And leniency is wisdom and understanding. These are the teachings of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And this is exactly what he taught his family members. This is exactly what he taught the companions. We know that there weren't many family members and companions that accompanied him from Medina to Mecca and from Mecca towards Kufa. There are two statements that says, tonight by the way we are commemorating the ashab, the companions. Remember, our brothers and sisters, that all of this happened except for last night. the Shahada of Muslim ibn Aqil alayhi salam. All of this happened on the night of Ashura and on the day of Ashura. But we divide and separate each night in order to give each one its due haqq. There are two views. When Imam Hussein left Mecca al-Mukarramah, he left with a large amount of people, and by the time he reached Karbala, there were smaller amounts. A second view is the same amount of people that left from Mecca were the same that stayed on the nights of Ashura. Imam Hussein alayhi salam came to realize that Sayyida Zainab salamullahi alayha was crying in her tent. And Imam Zain al-Abidin was there as well, because Sayyida Zainab was taking care of Imam Zain al-Abidin. Hussein went to the tent and said some pieces of poetry. Uffin laka, ya dahru uffin laka min khalili, kam laka bil ishraqi wal asili, and continued on with this piece of poetry. And this upset Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam. She heard the words and she stood up and walked to Hussein, and she said, Akhi Hussein, Habibi Hussein, are you grieving yourself to death? What are you saying? Imam Hussein alayhi salam said, Ya ukhtah, Ya Zainab, oh sister Zainab, do not let shaitan take away your patience. Know that all people on the earth will die. My grandfather died, my father died, my brother died, and they were all better than me. My sister Zainab, I must face this. Then Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam said to him, if this is the case, return us to the city of our grandfather. She then started crying, and she said, what great loss we will have. She then said to him, Ya Akhi Hussein, have you spoken to your companions? Have you tested your companions? Imam Hussein alayhi salam went to them. He gathered all of them, and he said, this is dark, the dark night. Take the hand of those who you wish and leave, because the enemy wants nothing from you. The enemy wants only me. You are free to leave. I free you of any responsibility. This is what he said to his companions.